To approve the minutes from July.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Moved and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And we have no new public hearings, and we have a continued public hearing.
Yes, the applicant's representative contacted me today and indicated that they are going to try to be before the zoning board on September 1st, so that there's really no need to discuss it tonight if there's going to be changes required by them. So they asked to be put on for the 15th of September. So I'm making a recommendation to continue it to September 15th.
I'll entertain a motion to continue.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Well, then we might as well get to, I believe it's 102 West Center Street for a request for an amended order of conditions. Street. Copy. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Dave Clenner. I'm from Collins Civil Engineering Group, and I'm here on behalf of Tom Kennedy for 102 West Center Street for the amended, or the modification plan to the already approved site plan. And this would be an amendment to the order of conditions. I believe it's- I have the
598.
598. So this, we brought it to the planning board, and they did approve it, and this is the plan that planning board approved for their modification. They had some slight revisions that they wanted to see, so I just made the revisions and I brought this plan in front of you. The plan indicates the yellow is the property line, the green is the wetland line, the hatched is our replication line that was approved under the old order conditions. The orange is the 50 and the pink is the 100. I also have a dashed a yellow line. Now we're making that the conservation easement under the recommendation from Mr. Delano. It was not that large at one time, but now we're bringing it all the way to around the back of the property and all the way up to West Center Street. This affords the wetlands protection and the Conservation Commission access to the wetlands as needed. This was something that was suggested by John, and we went ahead and wrote the covenant for this. The commission has the covenant with the Exhibit A showing that information. What's going to be added here is a 30-foot by 30-foot residential apartments above and just garage below. This would be a drive-under garage, the 30-foot by 30-foot. It's going to be added onto the east side of the existing building. It's going to be set back a little bit further than the existing building because we have a gas and electric meter, I think, right in that area. We're proposing a driveway. We are going to have a sign here that says residential parking only for the driveway, so that we're not going to have any commercial parking from the other site. That was something that the planning board had wanted, and it's on I believe sheet 2. The roof drain for this 30-foot by 30-foot addition will go into the existing drainage system in the parking lot. These plans indicate that the drainage system will handle it without any increase in flow. And the pavement was going to be surrounded by a stone trench. And the stone trench it's going to release the water as sheet flow across over 50 feet of lawn, which by stormwater management is a fairly decent way to clean stormwater. There will be a silt fence that will surround the site, the limit of work project, and that's about it for the modification.
The two bay garages for the apartment, or is it for the,
Those two bay apartments, those would be for the apartment, I would assume. They got two bays and then the parking for guests as well.
It's not gonna be commercial, it's either gonna be for me, to put my lawnmowers and stuff in, or I'm gonna offer it as a rental space to the apartment.
So that end right here, where the driveway comes in, that's just gonna be strictly for parking for the residential?
Yeah. Yep. And there's a sign, the planning board had, I think if you look on sheet 2 of 3, there's a sign here that just indicates that residence parking only sign. It's going to be right near the road.
What other things did they ask for?
They asked for a little bit wider radius to the street because of the traffic flow patterns there. I had a 5-foot radius. I increased that to, I think, a 10 or 15-foot radius.
5 foot for the driveway?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so now they can pull in without having to slam on the brakes.
Just in case you have a trailer or something like that behind you, yeah.
So, and then that was it. Those two things, the radiuses and the sign. They didn't want people that were going to be at the shops to be parking there.
Did they ask for the arborvitae's to be planted there, or?
No, those arborvitae's were originally approved along the east side of the building, and I just moved them out. Yeah.
In the area between the existing pave and the layout line, is that just going to be a grass strip? Basically between the West Center.
Oh, here?
pave, Yes.
Yeah, that will all be just a grass strip. One thing that the planning board had wanted me to do is flatten out my accesses to the street in case there was a sidewalk coming in. They wanted the entrance to the street to be fairly flat.
Now, the lot that's, not that it has anything to do with it, but that lot A, that can still be used later on down the road if there was some kind of,
There would be anything that would be attached to the building because that would create sprinkler systems.
not attached, but I mean,
Yeah.
if you wanted to later
Yeah.
on, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a possibility, right?
That's a possibility.
Okay. Right now, it's just grass?
Just grass.
Okay.
anybody else have any other comments?
So is that, how many roof drains is gonna be added?
There's just one
Just
more
one.
roof drain at the corners, and we'll run the drains down the side of the building. That's all right. I do have the calculations on sheet 3 that shows handles it. Yeah. so I added it.
Anybody else have any other comments, questions?
No.
I think it looks good. At this point, I will entertain a motion to issue an amended order of conditions.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Moved and seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Thank you.
Uh-oh, kitty.
Tired.
Aye.
Yep.
And we have a request for for certificate of compliance.
For 27 Wendell Street.
Yep.
This was a septic system upgrade, and the septic system is in front of the house. And because it was within 100 feet of the wetland, they needed to file. So they completed the work, submitted the as-built and the documents, and everything is stable. And I'm recommending that the commission issue a certificate of compliance without a bond.
I'll entertain a motion to issue a certificate of compliance without a bond.
I'll make the motion.
Second it.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved. And we have a request for amended order condition for Pleasant Street
That's next
meeting,
meeting.
which we can leave.
There was one tonight. Oh, there was just discussion on one tonight.
What was that?
There's something on one of them tonight.
Yeah, the
Maple Street.
one we just had is amended. And
That was the amended.
that one there is
Is for next, yep.
All right.
be advertised for the next meeting.
And the Town River Fishery Committee, number 2. Just an update, FYI, on,
At the last meeting, the commission voted to allow them to do a river cleanup with some guidance, and Kitty being the, basically the coordinator of, and got the Taunton River Fisheries Committee in order and running smoothly, asked if she could assist me in writing the guidance that the committee will use to clean up the river and not make any environmental impacts to the river, or minimize at least. And so she had a document that she knew of, and she researched it, that in a form that we could adapt it to West Bridgewater and Bridgewater, since it's 2 towns involved with it, and has put it together. Did you provide them with a copy, or do you just want to sort of give them a summary of what? It's
Well, if I got my
excellent.
piles right today, I might have brought it down, but chances are it's upstairs in the compost pile on my desk.
But it covers things like safety, what to do on the banks and what not to do, those kind of things, and very, very comprehensive and excellent. So we just wanted to update the commission on.
I can let you read it from my here if I see it here.
we've kind of used the application form part before,
Yes.
but it's the cover letter part of it that's,
And now it also has a video to go with it to teach how to do it, and it shows pictures right on the town river that was done by Russ Cohen.
She's providing a link in the document so that they can click on it and see it. Is that correct?
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
so good job.
It's pretty good job for.
This must be not on my little portable desk here, it's upstairs.
Which that kind of gives us a segue to discuss the possibility that there may be a dam removal in Bridgewater at some point in time.
It's under discussion.
It's just the early phases, but I just think we need to be aware that we may or may not get notified. I would hope we would, being that it will affect stream flow of the river in West Bridgewater from War Memorial Park down to Bridgewater Center.
High Street.
The High Street Dam,
Mhm.
they may look at removing
The
that
High Street, oh, up in,
in Bridgewater.
that would have, okay, yeah, coming
It's
down
a
that way.
450 acre water impoundment between Trukey's Landing and High Street that we
Really?
now have as a meandering river.
Could be significantly reduced if the dam does get removed.
So it'll shrink up then.
It's a
Yeah.
private
Anytime.
dam.
So if people have been kayaking and canoeing from, let's say, Trukey's Landing or Reynolds Landing. There will be a brook at that point,
Wow.
and a small one where you could jump across.
What's the purpose?
The dam itself is antiquated. There is no financial incentive to repair it if you're a private person. I think it's one of the old-fashioned dams that was an earthen dam partly, and it's had different types of renovation over the last centuries. So it's privately owned. The fellow would have to now do it according to today's permitting and regulations and engineering standards, and what is the reason for him to want to do it? But on the other hand, my concern, and this is why I mentioned it to John and to Tim, is that all of a sudden, the dialogue will be passed where West Bridgewater residents, and I'm glad that we're on television, we don't want it to go past our awareness. We want to be on top of any discussion with that, to be able to have our say. Because right now, when you think of Ash Street, that's a focal point of the town's open space and recreation plan and a lot of the activities
And
that
part of
we
the
do.
Bay Circuit Trail and the fact that we also have Trukey's Landing now, if
Right.
that was all to go away, that's, we have to spending the energy creating it,
So even though it's a dam that has maybe a 9 or 12-foot elevation from the Bridgewater end, it's not considered to be of great danger to the people downstream in Bridgewater. It would just be a few days of mess. But it's not going to wash people away if it broke. But on the other hand, if it prevailed that the state chose that one to remove, then in time, the town river between High Street and High Street, Reynolds Landing, Trukey's Landing, and War Memorial would be a significantly altered area. It would be faster moving. If it's faster moving, it might be colder. It would have a different habitat, different species. But it's unlikely that we could still use it for what we do now. And so I'm glad that the residents can learn about this and just keep their ears open. And make sure that this community is on top of any proposed changes.
A good example of what it would look like is the river at the old Cotton Gin in East Bridgewater at Plymouth Street and Whitman Street, 106, on the Setauket. And when that dam was opened up so that they would allow water to flow through, it went from a big impoundment pond area to just a small trickle. And sometimes in the summer, it doesn't even look like it's flowing, but it is. And that's what this would probably look like in the summer times. During the spring, of course, it likes to find its way out to the extreme edges of the river, but during the summer months, it would tend to reduce right down to a small thread of a stream. And one of the abutters to that impounded area in East Bridgewater had some concerns about the fact that they bought the property because they liked the view out over that water that was behind the dam. And the person from the state indicated that with the growth of the wetland fringe along that river going unchecked by natural flooding, it's going to become a forested meadow, and they're not going to see the water anyway. So it's an indication of the attitude that the state official has to the aesthetics. It's not that important. I mean, it's obviously something that should be considered, but only minimally, and everything else is considered much more important than the view. So the fisheries, the natural flow of the water, all far outweigh the aesthetics of what people like to look at when they see these impounded areas behind dams. So you have to have quite a bit of people involved with it that can come up with reasons why it shouldn't be taken down, or it gets taken down.
So that was just an FYI. I think number 5 is going to be a little bit of a discussion.
Okay,
Um,
we'll do number 6.
Yeah, number 6, since that's an easy,
For quite a while, long before most of us, maybe Lee, and Tim, maybe, okay.
Yep.
So, on South Elm Street, the Flaggy Meadow Trust that tried to do some moss farming was denied by the commission, and the commission was upheld by the DEP that moss farming isn't an agricultural exemption, and that the owner of the land had to go through all of the normal activities involved with permitting for working around wetlands. And eventually the trust brought a case against the town, and it's been languishing in the courts for quite some time now, involving town council's energies and input, which obviously costs money for the town to be involved with going to court and writing motions and responding. And so the last time that it was coming up for a hearing in front of a judge, the town council asked if I felt there was any reason why it shouldn't be going forward to trial instead of being continued month after month, year after year. And I said, no, why don't you take it to the judge and have a trial? And I think we can show that it's a case that no longer has any merit, because the applicant is currently trying to get 2 projects permitted on the land that's subject to the court case. And so town council did go with that in mind, and explained to the judge that West Bridgewater was ready to stand trial and would have witnesses and everything else that's needed. And the plaintiff's attorney must have seen that we were ready to go, and suggested that if they could agree, town council and the plaintiff's attorney could agree on some stipulations to settle the case and have it dismissed with some conditions that his client would feel comfortable with, that they would agree to allow it to be dismissed as well. So the stipulations were basically that his client will be treated fairly and just like any other applicant before the commission, and that the commission won't prejudice his projects based on the fact that there was this court case pending for so long. And the town council agreed to it, and on our behalf got the case dismissed. So that's ended, and now we just have to wait for the applicant to come back with the additional information that's needed to be able to move his 2 projects forward from where they've been left off for some time now, while his engineering consultants are gathering information that we requested at the last hearing that they were here, which was some time ago, probably even before you were here, Steve. That's how far back that goes.
So he's gonna have to start all over again.
So, yeah, he's basically
It's not new,
starting with 2 new projects.
which would be better for him, I think,
Yeah,
to get rid of everything in the past and just start over fresh.
yeah, bygones be bygones.
Yeah.
very good, John. It's been a long time getting that off the table. In number 6, we have a 61A parcel of land on South Street for a first refusal decision or recommendation. It had been before us previously.
Oh, it's the same one?
Same one, but it was
3 lots.
3 lots. This is just a single lot. I believe there was discussion amongst some of the other committees in town that I think feel that we want to seriously look at this and look at what the future could hold for it. My thought is, if they were here for 3 lots before and now it's 1, are we looking at a piecemeal project where it's 1 this year, 1 next year, 2 the next year, 1 the next, and 7 years down the road, they've gotten rid of all of it piece by piece.
I agree.
I mean, this money that they're looking for is basically a third of what was offered for the 3 before. I'd be willing to say, hey, if it's a third of what it was before and we were interested, I'm still interested for a third.
Right.
I mean, it's,
Now, he didn't, the Gibson family didn't specify that could be a yearly.
they haven't. I mean, I don't know what their thought process is, whether they're just looking for enough money for 1 lot, and that's what they need to sell to do whatever they need to do with the farm.
I'd like to see what the thought process is on that, though.
But knowing that we have to either say yes or no before we can go too much further.
Could we ask him before maybe what the thought process is for the future of it, or for the next couple lots before we decide? Or is it
I
something
think,
that
yes, we can. I don't know whether they have to tell us, but.
yeah, I mean,
I think
whether or not, I give it an
It's the
answer.
same builder. It's basically the price, 1/3 of what each of the 3 lots were gonna go for the last time. I mean, or what the total of the 3 lots was going. So it's gonna be a house, and I think the next one would be sold fairly quickly afterwards, and I think it's just a tactic myself, and I think that if you let that one go thinking, oh, it's not really worth it because it's only the size of a building lot here in town, and you can't really use it for a ball field or adding on to the cemetery. So let's let it go. Well, then the next one will come along, and then you're gonna say the same thing, and then by the time the 3rd one comes along, there's really nothing left to add on. And you got houses and residential people there now that aren't gonna be so inclined to have a ball field behind them, or,
A municipal site of whatever, or
Exactly.
something else that,
Hmm.
I mean, once you put a house, it's gone.
True,
I mean,
very true.
over in East Bridgewater, they had Latham Farms, which was a big agricultural parcel. They were gonna develop it into house lots, and the town bought it for open space. Eventually, the soccer committee developed some soccer fields there, and some parking, and some access drives, and now the poor residential abutters are faced with people coming in on weekends to tournaments and all kinds of activity that goes on there. And that's what happens after people move in. They realize there's something that's gonna happen behind them that wasn't there before, and they're the ones that suffer. So if the town does eventually wanna have part of that additional land as municipal purposes, the people up front are going to face some type of a change that they're not really privy to at this point. When they go to buy a brand new house, they expect, oh, it's a beautiful view out there. So I think you have to tie it up. And then wait for the next one and tie that one up, and then the 3rd one, tie that one up.
Surprised I'm not in here. Oh, just to see
Well, I think they'll meet with the
Discuss.
selectmen.
first.
yeah. Once we say, if we so decide to, that we want to suggest to the selectmen they exercise their right, then they'll show up like they did the last time at a hearing and want to hear why we think we should be looking at going forward with it. But, I mean, there's little potential use for it. I mean, there's other things that it could be used for. Picnic area next to the cemetery on that side of town. Area to stop for bicyclists or something like that, that use that area a lot. Community gardens, I mean, there's lots of other things that, and if you're adding a piece onto it afterwards, then you're just adding a bigger piece to the puzzle. When I saw the price, I said, okay, it's a third of what the original was, so why wouldn't we at least look at it if,
And whatever happens out back could still happen out back later on, whatever they decide, so. I mean,
right?
I guess it's a good example of how, that if the town is interested, I think we have to start thinking about a plan for being ready the next time with some potential funding from an outside source or other grant money that might be available. And so if this is the way we're going to approach it piecemeal, I think if the town is willing to buy this one parcel, that we should be preparing ourselves to get the funding set up so that when the second and the third comes along, and maybe the remaining land, that we have a funding source for it. And not just say, oh, we'll wait, because it's very hard to deal with the timelines that the 61A statute has and get this funding arranged that quickly. Town meeting, this is all the things that are involved with it. And so I think we have to now say, let's start planning and get those things in the work so that when it happens, you're right there with the plan on how you're going to acquire it without impacting the residents.
Good idea.
And you think there would have been something maybe said ahead of time, that this is what we're gonna be thinking of, keep it in mind,
I don't know why.
instead of just coming out and now you get the shorter period of time to get it by, and if you don't, just to give you a heads up for everybody.
Because if you're selling it, whether the town pays that amount or the developer pays that
Mhm.
amount, the landowner shouldn't care if we bought it as a town or whether the builder bought it. So the money's still gonna be the same.
Yeah, it's just that it puts a little pressure on the town, and
So I am with you on that I'm surprised that there hasn't been some dialogue with the town on this, like why, if you're thinking about this, why don't you come to the town, talk to it first?
Knowing that the last time when they had a 3-lot parcel, we were interested.
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, that's exactly.
And of course, the process does require a bona fide offer for someone to buy it
Yeah.
before you can take it out of 61A and then offer the town the first right of refusal. But if you're thinking about it, maybe you can talk with the town and say, we're thinking about selling this land.
You could work something out.
Are you going to be interested?
Yeah,
Right, before you have to go through the whole appraisal process and the whole
Yeah.
hiring an agent or somebody to list it and deal with that if it's,
And that's part of the planning. I think we, start getting appraisals on it
Mm.
ahead of time, and that way we're that much closer to
having it done.
having it done. Yeah.
So, I'll entertain a motion that we
what's the time period?
send a letter to the selectmen to,
It's fast, whatever it is. I think it's probably 90 days or some, 120 days.
I think it's 120.
20, yeah.
This is already passed for the one lot? The one lot thing is already passed?
No. It says it's fast.
Oh, it's fast. Oh, I got beans in my ears. Don't laugh.
But also knowing that I'm not sure if the powers upstairs have any time frame or anything for a special town meeting coming up, but they normally have one in the fall.
Yeah.
So we might have a little bit of a helpful window, knowing that if we had to push this
Yeah.
or promote it to the town, that it's a worthwhile project.
Worthwhile, it's just a little awkward how they just went about.
Yeah.
Was there a vote on that?
I'll entertain a motion to send a letter of interest for the parcel on South Street.
Make the motion.
I'll second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Yeah, I'll take care of that.
Thank you, John. And I think that might be, some signatures?
Signing the amended order and the certificate of compliance.
And we do have a letter that we've been invited to a ribbon cutting. If anybody is available, Saturday, September 12th,
Time.
for the new school at 1 PM.
Oh, yeah, I got that.
Marked it on my calendar.
And then
And then a tour of it.
the appreciation lunch.
Yes.
On the 12th, or the 14th.
14th.
When are they gonna be tearing down physically tearing down the high school?
They just started today. I was gonna say, the auditorium, or the gymnasium backside's supposed to work out, because they
Yeah.
gotta get parking in for,
Yeah.
Do we start selling the bricks that I've been able to, every time I inspect over there, I grab a brick and then we could
Put it
do a
towards-
fundraiser?
Put it towards some fines and profit.
I know they were selling part of the parquet from the gym floor.
Were they?
They were, or you could request pieces of it or something like
You
that.
know what, if they did, that would be smart to do. If they wanted to do it, anybody wanted to buy something.
I still think they should have done something with all the chairs in the auditorium. Those are so uncomfortable, but somebody would do like they did with Fenway and
And just
buy a couple as
Yeah.
a souvenir.
Probably somebody's initials they could buy that'd been there
Yep.
for the last 25 years, maybe they'll.
2 or 3
Yeah,
generations
yeah.
worth of initials carved into something.
The
Yeah.
bubble gum and all the other
Huh?
gums underneath.
That used to be my, I marked that one way back.
JD and JP with a heart. And, yeah, that kind of thing. That's my chair.
You have a chair in there, Kitty?
I never wrote on anything.
But do you still have a chair in there? Doesn't mean somebody didn't put your initials in there for you.
Right.
Oh, I would be shocked.
Think you should go
Back
check
when
it out.
I was in school, they didn't mutilate anything.
Too new, huh?
It was when the Pilgrims landed.
If nobody has anything else, then I'll entertain a motion to close.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that.
We're done.